What is good, y'all? Yes, you read the title correctly. Porygon2 and Porygon-Z are now interchangeable. In this hack, you can evolve Porygon-Z right back into Porygon2 with a item called a hotfix. That is huge. That alone is already a massive change. They have all types of other incredible nuances, which I really encourage you to listen through the whole video to listen to. First time I uploaded these guys months ago, it was like a 45-minute long video. I try to do things much differently now, but it was sad. That video kind of flopped, and it's a bit of a shame. I think this is way cooler than the Furfru and Minior stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people love those. This is way, way cooler, though, in my opinion. It's also way more useful mechanically, although the Furfru one is pretty crazy, too, because you can switch forms. But my point is, Porygon2, sick buffs and changes overall. Just the fact that you can choose between the two whenever you want is huge. The fact that in this hack you don't have access to a movie learner until the end of the game is normally like a balancing choice, right? Well, first of all, it's a limitation, but I actually balanced the hack around it. So the moves that you get are all incredible, and you kind of have to be careful with which ones you pick and which ones you teach and delete as you go. You also have access to a giant array of TM and tutor options in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon in this hack, so you can easily just switch between those with your TMs and tutors. And you also have 2 great abilities on every single Pokemon with an infinite use ability capsule. I've also buffed and changed 600 plus moves in this hack, so if this is your first impression of my ROM hack, please do give that Google Sheet in the description a look. It's the very same one I'm sharing on screen right now. You can check it all out in the description below. It's all organized into great detail. I'll quickly show the move sheet just for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. You can check it all out for yourself in the description, but look, I'll scroll back up. If you check, there's a little table of contents here, and you can organize by section and click all these little categories. It'll jump you there. So yeah, please give that a look. Really important, but I don't want to waste time because I got to cover a lot of stuff for these dudes. The power levels in this hack are absurdly high. There are all kinds of very strong high base power moves, boosting abilities, and all types of other crazy stuff. There are also all types of crazy bulky Pokemon running around. This is one of them, but there are so many bulky Pokemon, not to mention parting shot is everywhere. All types of other defensive counterplay is all over the place, so it's all going to balance out in the end. But a lot of people will look at this and be like, oh, it's so strong, completely ignoring how bulky Porygon2 is, completely ignoring all of the defensive utility options that you get. So I feel like people just have a tendency to focus on the offense and not the defense. And the beautiful thing about Porygon2 and Porygon-Z is you don't have to pick. You can run Porygon-Z when you want that offense and Porygon2 when you want the defense and the bulk. It's beautiful. I love it. The type change, I'm not going to dwell on it for too long because it makes a lot of sense, and I have more important things to talk about. If you don't like it, I don't think you'll like this ROM hack. I'm going to be frank. If you don't like the Electric Psychic, the idea of Electric Psychic Porygon, and that's not like a wrong thing. It's just I highly doubt that this would interest you. If it makes a lot of sense, it's very unique. The only other one is Alolan Raichu. It's funny because both Alolan Raichu and Porygon-Z and Porygon2 share the ability to Levitate. I give Levitate to a lot of Pokemon that are floating above ground in this hack because it's a really useful ability to switch to with an infinite use ability capsule, especially on something frail like Porygon-Z. It gives you a lot of much needed switch in opportunities. Porygon2's ability Debug is a really cool ability that basically functions like Mummy. It's a reskin of Mummy. So on such a bulky Pokemon, obviously on the physical side, I think you're still technically a little bit bulkier on the physical side despite the HP loss because of the Violet boosting the defensive stat. I think you actually might be bulkier. I'm not going to check it out, too lazy, and I don't have time. But special defense-wise, you are an absolute tank. Psychic Electric also has some solid resistances and not too many weaknesses. In fact, it's only weak to Ghost and Dark with Levitate, and of course with Debug. You're only ever running Debug when you need it. So Debug is a beautiful ability in this hack because a lot of Pokemon in this hack, I wouldn't say depend on their abilities to be good, but the fact that every Pokemon has 2 great abilities means that disabling abilities is a much bigger deal than it used to be. In main games, a lot of Pokemon have just fucking filler bullshit abilities, or just like kind of whatever abilities. But in this hack, a lot of Pokemon, their ability is a big deal. So having this ability Debug is great. As for Porygon's ability called Database, this is actually a quality of life thing. So Porygon will be a gift Pokemon, probably one of the first few totem sticker Pokemon gifts you get. Which is awesome because that's guaranteed in a Nuzlocke. And also, by the way, Porygon in a Team Locked Nuzlocke, which is kind of what the hack is balanced around. That's how I'll be playing it. That's how I'll encourage any really experienced Nuzlockers to play. Team Locked meaning you can't go to your PC to deposit Pokemon. That's because every Pokemon can do so many different things. So I want you to be able to come up with creative solutions for boss fights instead of just going to your PC and picking a bunch of crazy Pokemon and countering every single Pokemon on the team. It feels a lot less feels a lot easier to do it that way, but of course the hack will also be hard for anybody who's less experienced or who's just playing casually. It'll be difficult for you for sure, but for really experienced hardcore Nuzlockers, I highly recommend trying Team Locked. And in this case, Pokemon that can literally, and when I say 2 Pokemon in 1, I often use that to refer to like Mega Evolutions, which are literally 2 Pokemon in 1 in this hack, but in this case, it is like actually just 2 great Pokemon in 1. It's beautiful, it's awesome. Logically, it makes a lot of sense because Porygon-Z is just a virus, right? So theoretically, you could fix the virus and turn it back into a Porygon2. I think it's awesome. I love it. I love the Porygon line as a whole. So yeah, database, I'm not even gonna, you can read this if you're curious as to what it does, but basically it's just a way to get the items to evolve Porygon and a way to get the items for Technoblast and multi-attack, which Porygon-Z even learns multi-attack, which is actually pretty good when you consider that it's a 120 base power move that can become any type in the game, and you actually learn that infinitely. So like I was saying earlier, the movie learner thing I was touching on, as you can see here, it says ev, right? That usually means the Pokemon learns it upon evolution. Since you can infinitely evolve your Porygon-Z and Porygon2, the moves Recover, Trick Room, Barrier, Psychic Terrain, Multi-Attack, Swift, Extreme Speed, and Synchronize are all infinitely reteachable. Recover, obviously great, right? I don't like to cover that. You don't have access to healing items in this hack, so having an infinitely reteachable healing option is chef's kiss, beautiful, especially on a bulky-ass Pokemon like Porygon2. Also, quickly, I want to address this. If anybody is curious, yes, Porygon-Z technically does work with the Violite now. Excuse me. There's nothing I can do about that. I don't mind it too much. It's not the best item for Porygon-Z, because if you want the bulk, you'd probably rather use Porygon2. But in theory, for very niche circumstances, you could use a Violite Porygon-Z to take a hit and still be fast and strong. But Porygon2 is also strong, so like you don't. It's niche, but yes, technically you can use that, and it's kind of funny that you can, because Porygon-Z is like kind of a glitch anyways, so the fact that there's a bit of a weird mechanic there is kind of funny to me. But yes, reteachable Recovery, Trick Room. Reteachable Trick Room in this hack is crazy, alright? Porygon2 is also so bulky that you don't even need a Violite every boss fight. You can actually use something like Quick Claw Trick Room. Quick Claw is a single-use consumable item, so that'll out-prioritize stuff like Taunt, and you can get a Trick Room off, and you can Volt Switch out into your Abuser, or you can abuse it yourself if you want. So that's really good. Barrier, reteachable, beautiful. That's basically like having the Iron Defense Tutor, but it's Barrier instead. Keep in mind that crit moves such as First Impression will bypass right through your defense boost, but it's still a great option, especially with Calm Mind and Parabolic Charge or Recover. These guys are like crazy, I'm not gonna lie. Like just the utility they provided in Nuzlocke and Hardcore Nuzlocke because of the reteachable moves and because of the 2 Pokemon in 1 is crazy. Obviously the stats and stuff are all great, but I mean there's tons of Pokemon in this hack that are actually bulkier than Porygon2, and there's tons of Pokemon in this hack that are stronger and or faster than Porygon-Z. But he is still crazy. He's also paper thin, and he dies to First Impression, which is one of the most common priority moves in this game. There's also tons of other common priority moves like Sucker Punch, and also just a priority move for every type. For example, in this case, you have Influx and Shockwave, which are priority moves, as well as Swift, which with Galvanize becomes a 66 base power priority move, which is situationally good over Shockwave because Swift is reteachable via evolution. Multi-attack, like I was trying to allude to earlier, is great. Psychic Terrain, reteachable. Normally Psychic Terrain is a very niche move, right? Because you don't have infinite reteachability to it, so it's more of just, okay, I'll use this for Hala and then probably delete it. But with Porygon2, you can actually use Psychic Terrain to prevent priority and use that for all types of strategies, especially sweeps. So that's beautiful. He can enable, honestly, Porygon2 enables so much stuff with that Trick Room and Psychic Terrain reteachable, because Trick Room is usually a niche option in a lot of Pokemon because of the fact that it's not reteachable, but because it is on Porygon2, it's crazy. Multi-attack, you can use raw multi-attack on Porygon2 because it does have a respectable base attack stat. With Galvanize, it'll be 144 base power with Galvanize, and it'll always drop defense. So multi-attack always drops defense. Technoblast is the opposite of that on the special side, so it always drops special defense, and it's 144 base power. No drawbacks. It's a crazy-ass move. That's why it's at level 65. Not to mention the special defense drop is kind of like overkill. Like in a competitive sense, this would be absurd because anything that can ever check Technoblast would come in and get its special defense drop, right? It's broken. Although honestly, he would be broken under Psychic Terrain if this was a competitive, metagame. He would be broken under Psychic Terrain because you can't revenge kill him with priority, so it's very limited. But honestly, there's all types of Pokemon that are faster than him still. But the raw power is pretty nuts with Galvanize. Galvanize Hyper Beam is insane. Hyper Beam is a 160 base power move that works like Draco Meteor now, so that's crazy strong. 192 base power with Galvanize. You also have Hyper Voice and Commotion, which are 102 and 114 base power respectively. Hyper Voice having no effect. Commotion always confusing. Explosion is a 250 base power special move that always crits, so with Galvanize that is 450 base power. Very, very strong electric type option if you're not doing a Nuzlocke. If you are doing one, it's shit, obviously. It's useless. You're going to die if you use it, but it's fun nonetheless. But as I was saying with the reteachable options, extreme speed, while normally would be pretty, niche on Porygon-Z because his attack stat isn't that great, because of the fact that it's reteachable means that you have a really high priority 96 base power priority move coming off of 80 base attack. That's not that great, but for certain situations it's useful, and you have that infinite reteachability. So even if it's only useful for one boss fight, it's still useful for one boss fight. It's really cool. Synchronoise, a move that is still extremely niche despite the buffs that I gave it. Synchronoise will always boost special attack, and it's a normal type move, but it is sadly still pretty niche for a lot of boss fights on a lot of Pokemon that get it. But with Pory, once you have the fact that it's reteachable, it becomes insane. Because if there's any electric or psychic type Pokemon in front of you, you can use Synchronoise, and without a Galvanize, with Galvanize it's 144 base power. Without Galvanize, it's just a 120 base power normal type move. And that will give you +1 special attack each time you click it, which is even stronger than stuff like Nasty Plot and Calm Mind, because those have limited PP. Speaking of boosting moves, you also have Electro Ball, which will give you +1 speed, which is pretty damn crazy. The first use of Electro Ball is still relatively weak, but you can actually snowball pretty quickly with Electro Ball. Again, if you happen to have a Psychic Surge Mon, yeah, Porygon-Z becomes pretty damn busted. But given the fact that he is checked by all of the common as priority attacks in the game, I'm not worried about it. Not to mention, something to keep in mind for any fast offensive frail Pokemon that you see in this hack, none of them are guaranteed max speed IVs or a plus speed nature. So 120 base speed, as incredible as it might look, is not that great when you consider the fact that you might only have like 15 speed IVs and a neutral nature. Now you're getting outsped by like everything, like everything that is over 100 base speed is going to outspeed you on the AI, because they're going to have max IVs and plus speed nature. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, Strange Impulse, that's great utility, drops special attack by 2. Recharge is a great healing option until you get Recover on evolution, and also even over Recover if you want. Recharge will heal you by 1/3, but it gives you that charged up effect, so it'll double the power of your next electric attack, making it very strong. Parabolic Charge is also sick. That is great on Porygon2 especially because of how bulky you are. Yeah, you have all types of other really cool stuff like Neuralize, that is like a permanent, semi-permanent disable. Tri-Attack is incredibly powerful. That is 127 base power overall with Galvanize, has 0 drawbacks. It hits 3 times, so each hit is 35 base power. Very, very strong move, right? Extremely good. Technoblast, even stronger. Drop special defense, although honestly you could argue Tri-Attack is better because it bypasses stuff like Wakan Berry and Focus Sash and stuff. So Technoblast is kind of overkill. I might actually genuinely use Tri-Attack over it, but regardless, they're both awesome. Hyper Beam is even stronger. It's absurdly powerful. 150 special attack also fits Porygon-Z's vibes very well. I also like how their stats are kind of mirrored with the speed doubling from 2 to Z. HP is consistent among all 3 of them because they're all actually very similar sized anyways. They each gain 20 attack. They each, what am I trying to say here? 105 is like kind of an inverse of 150. And that's really all the stat little gimmicks I can give. The rest of them are just there. Oh, and the defense doubles as well. So defense, or halves rather. Defense halves when you go to Porygon-Z. So I think the stats are also super cute and fitting. Yeah, there's a couple other things I could touch on, but I'll just trust that you can check out all the move buffs and changes in the description. As a whole, though, these guys are fucking crazy. Really, really sucks that they didn't get the attention they deserved on the first upload. So I hope that this re-upload does them justice. To make sure that happens, I'm going to shut up now because I don't want this to go over like 15 minutes because people won't click on a 15-minute video, I feel like. Yeah, I appreciate you listening this far into the video. Shout out to you. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments down below. I wish I could be more thorough, but I don't want this to drag on for too long. Just know that there's a bunch of other really cool options and things that they can abuse, and you can check those out in the description below. Peace, y'all.